History, India and Kerala, Lecture Notes. Indian history is broadly categorized into ancient, medieval, and modern periods, with Kerala's history interwoven across all phases, making it essential to approach the subject in chronological as well as thematic order for conceptual clarity and retention. Ancient Indian history begins with the prehistoric period, with the Paleolithic age, approximately 2.5 million years ago, marking the earliest use of stone tools. This was succeeded by the Mesolithic and Neolithic ages, each characterized by increasingly refined tools and early settlements. The Neolithic period, especially notable in sites like Mehrgarh, marks the beginning of agriculture and domestication of animals. The Indus Valley Civilization, 2500–1750 BCE, was a mature urban culture known for advanced town planning, drainage systems, standardized weights, and undeciphered script. The Indus Valley Civilization, 2500–1750 BCE, was a mature urban culture known for advanced town planning, drainage systems, standardized weights, and undeciphered script. Key sites include Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, and Dholavira. While religion was nature-centric, no evidence of temples exists, indicating a different spiritual structure than Vedic culture. The decline remains debated. Environmental changes, decline in trade, and Aryan invasion theory are major hypotheses. The Vedic period 1500–600 BCE began with the arrival of Indo-Aryans and the composition of the Rigveda. Society was pastoral, later transitioning to agriculture. The Varna system evolved, and early religion focused on nature gods like Indra and Agni. The later Vedic period witnessed settled agriculture, emergence of kingdoms Mahajanapadas, and rituals like Ashvamedha signifying political authority. Religious movements such as Jainism and Buddhism, 6th century BCE, arose as a response to ritualistic Vedic dominance and social stratification. Jainism, propagated by Mahavira, emphasized nonviolence, while Buddhism, founded by Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, stressed the middle path, Four Noble Truths, and Eightfold Path. Both religions rejected caste-based hierarchies and performed a key role in shaping Indian thought. The Mauryan Empire, 322–185 BCE, under Chandragupta Maurya was India's first large-scale political unification. Kautilya's Arthashastra and Megasthene's Indica provide vital administrative insights. Ashoka's reign marks a golden phase. His propagation of Dhamma, use of edicts for communication, and spread of Buddhism to Sri Lanka and Central Asia are significant. His inscriptions are early examples of written records in Brahmi and Kharosthi scripts. Post-Mauryan kingdoms like the Shungas, Satavahanas, and Kushanas maintained regional balance and trade networks. The Kushanas, under Kanishka, supported Mahayana Buddhism and trade along the Silk Route. Post-Mauryan kingdoms like the Shungas, Satavahanas, and Kushanas maintained regional balance and trade networks. The Kushanas, under Kanishka, supported Mahayana Buddhism and trade along the Silk Route. The Gupta Empire, 320–550 CE, is termed the Golden Age for its advancements in science, mathematics, concept of zero, decimal system, literature, Kalidasa, and art, Ajanta murals. The political decentralization and Huna invasions led to its decline. South Indian dynasties like the Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas form the backbone of early Kerala and Tamilakam history. The Sangam age, circa 300 BCE to 300 CE, offers literary insights into political, social, and economic life. In Kerala, the Muzira Sport Muchiri was a keynote in Indo-Roman trade. Early Tamil literature mentions Perumals and temple-centered socio-political structures. Medieval Kerala saw the emergence of feudal polity, with Brahmin settlements, agraharams, and the rise of the Namboothiri dominance. The Kulasakaras of Mahodayapuram, 9th–12th century, centralized administration. The arrival of Islam in Kerala through Arab traders in the 7th century CE was peaceful, leading to the growth of Mappila Muslim culture. The Portuguese, 1498, Vasco da Gama disrupted existing trade, leading to conflicts and alliances with local rulers like the Zamorin of Calicut. The Dutch, French, and eventually British replaced the Portuguese, each impacting Kerala's economy and polity. Modern Indian history begins with the decline of the Mughal Empire post-Aurangzeb and the rise of regional powers like the Marathas, Sikhs, and Mysore rulers. British expansion was facilitated through superior military strategy, diplomacy, subsidiary alliance, doctrine of lapse, and economic exploitation via the East India Company. Kerala under colonialism was divided mainly into the princely states of Travancore, Cochin, and the Malabar district under British Madras presidency. Social movements like those led by Sri Narayana Guru, Iyengali, and Vaikunta Swamikal challenged caste oppression and laid the groundwork for Kerala's progressive society. The Temple Entry Proclamation of 1936 in Travancore was a milestone in social reform. India's freedom struggle had parallel echoes in Kerala. Movements like the Malabar Rebellion, 1921, had peasant, anti-colonial, and religious undertones. Leaders such as K. Kelappan, Vakam Moolavi, and T. K. Madhavan contributed to both national and regional awakening. Post-independence, the formation of Kerala state in 1956 was based on linguistic reorganization. The first democratically elected communist government under EMS Namboodiripad introduced landmark reforms like land redistribution, literacy campaigns, and health initiatives that contributed to Kerala's human development model. Previous year questions. Discuss the significance of Ashoka's Dhamma in the context of Indian polity and society. CAS 2020. Answer. Ashoka's Dhamma was a moral code that promoted nonviolence, respect for all sects, welfare of the public, and ethical governance. It bridged religious divides and acted as a unifying ideology post-Kalinga War, projecting the state as a benevolent moral force. Evaluate the socio-religious reform movements in Kerala and their impact on the caste system. CAS 2022. Answer. Reformers like Sri Narayana Guru advocated one caste, one religion, one God, challenging Brahmanical dominance. Movements led by Iyengar demanded educational access and public space rights for Dalits. These efforts weakened caste barriers and democratized social spaces, laying foundations for Kerala's social justice narrative. Analyze the role of trade in shaping early Kerala's political and cultural landscape. Caste 2019. Answer. Trade with the Romans, Arabs, and Chinese turned Kerala into a cosmopolitan society. Ports like Muziris facilitated cultural exchanges and economic prosperity, empowering local rulers and communities. It led to religious pluralism, evident in the early presence of Jews, Christians, and Muslims in Kerala. Let me know the next topic or section under GSI you'd like me to cover in this style. We can move to geography, society, or dive deeper into specific history segments like freedom struggle, ancient science and culture, etc. You said. Ancient and medieval period, ChatGPT said. Perfect. Here is your full-length, high-quality lecture on ancient and medieval Indian history, including Kerala's developments during the same periods, written in a dense and informative style, tailored for CAST Junior Timescale Trainee Stream 1, structured from base to advanced concepts. Previous year questions with answers are added at the end, no space wasted, no tables used. Ancient and medieval period, Indian and Kerala history. Ancient Indian history unfolds with the evolution of human settlements in the Indian subcontinent, beginning from the Paleolithic period where early humans depended on hunting and stone tools, gradually progressing to the Neolithic period characterized by settled agriculture, domestication of animals, pottery, and community life. The Mehrgarh site, 7000 BCE, in present-day Pakistan provides early evidence of farming and semi-nomadic pastoral life. This foundational socio-economic transition laid the groundwork for urban civilizations. The Indus Valley Civilization, 2500-1750 BCE, one of the world's earliest urban civilizations, flourished in the northwestern regions with advanced city planning, grid-patterned streets, standardized bricks, and a complex drainage system. Major cities like Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Dholavira demonstrated socio-economic complexity, with evidence of centralized authority, maritime trade with Mesopotamia, and an agrarian economy supported by irrigation. The civilization's decline remains a subject of scholarly debate, attributed variously to environmental degradation, tectonic shifts, and declining trade. The arrival of Indo-Aryans around 1500 BCE marks the Vedic age, distinguished by the composition of the Rigveda and later Vedas. Initially pastoral, Vedic society transitioned to agriculture during the later Vedic period, leading to settled life, iron usage, and emergence of Janapadas. The Varna system solidified, and rituals became more elaborate. Political power shifted from tribal assemblies to monarchies, setting the stage for state formation. By 6th century BCE, political consolidation produced Mahajanapadas, and socio-religious discontent led to heterodox movements. Buddhism and Jainism emerged, emphasizing nonviolence, ethical living, and liberation without caste-based discrimination. These doctrines challenged Vedic orthodoxy and gained royal patronage, especially under rulers like Bimbisara, Ajatashatru, and Ashoka. Buddhism, in particular, evolved into Theravada and Mahayana schools, spreading across Asia. The Mauryan Empire. By 6th century BCE, the arrival of Indo-Aryans around 1500 BCE marks the Vedic age. The Indus Valley Civilization, 2500-1750 BCE, one of the world's earliest urban civilizations, flourished in the northwestern regions with advanced city planning, grid-patterned streets, standardized bricks, and a complex drainage system. Major cities like Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Dholavira demonstrated socio-economic complexity, with evidence of centralized authority, maritime trade with Mesopotamia, and an agrarian economy supported by irrigation. The civilization's decline remains a subject of scholarly debate, attributed variously to environmental degradation, tectonic shifts, and declining trade. The arrival of Indo-Aryans around 1500 BCE marks the Vedic age, distinguished by the composition of the Rigveda and later Vedas. Initially pastoral, Vedic society transitioned to agriculture during the later Vedic period, leading to settled life, iron usage, and emergence of Janapadas. The Varna system solidified, and rituals became more elaborate. Political power shifted from tribal assemblies to monarchies, setting the stage for state formation. By 6th century BCE, political consolidation produced Mahajanapadas, and socio-religious discontent led to heterodox movements. Buddhism and Jainism emerged, emphasizing nonviolence, ethical living, and liberation without caste-based discrimination. These doctrines challenged Vedic orthodoxy and gained royal patronage, especially under rulers like Bimbisara, Ajatashatru, and Ashoka. Buddhism, in particular, evolved into Theravada and Mahayana schools, spreading across Asia. The Mauryan Empire, 322-185 BCE, under Chandragupta Maurya and later Ashoka, centralized governance through a bureaucratic state, described in Kautilya's Arthashastra. Ashoka's post-Kalinga transformation led to propagation of Dhamma, ethical administration, and construction of stupas and pillars with inscriptions in Prakrit and Brahmi script. The Mauryan decline gave way to regional powers like the Shungas and Satavahanas. The Gupta Empire, 320-550 CE, is often termed the classical age, due to flourishing art, science, literature, and philosophy. decimal system, concept of zero, Aryabhata, Sanskrit literature, Kalidasa, and temple architecture reached new heights. Society remained hierarchical with growing feudal elements. Religious tolerance coexisted with the rise of Brahmanical dominance through Puranas and temple rituals. The Hun invasions and internal fragmentation led to Gupta decline. In South India, the Sangam aged circa 300 BCE 300 CE witnessed Tamilakam's cultural efflorescence. Literature produced during this period offers vivid descriptions of kingship, warfare, trade, and societal structure. The Cheras, Cholas, and Pandyas dominated early Kerala and Tamil regions. The port of Muziris Muchiri linked Kerala to the Roman Empire, exporting pepper and spices. Buddhism and Jainism reached Kerala during this era, influencing art and ethics. The post-Sangam and early medieval period, 300 to 800 CE, saw decline in long-distance trade, with agrarian expansion and temple-centered polity. The Bhakti movement, emphasizing personal devotion to deities like Vishnu and Shiva, emerged as a major religious force, democratizing religion and challenging Brahmanical elitism. In Kerala, this coincided with the rise of Brahmanical landholding systems, Brahmaswam and Devaswam, reinforced by land grants from ruling elites. The Kulasakara dynasty, 811–02 CE, marked the beginning of medieval Kerala polity with Mahodayapuram as its capital. The Shera Perumals maintained trade ties with Arab and Chinese merchants and supported the construction of temples. The integration of Brahmins into land administration formalized the Jani system, cementing socio-religious hierarchy. Cultural life flourished with contributions in Sanskrit and Malayalam. The arrival of Islam, 7th century CE, through Arab traders led to the emergence of Mappila Muslim communities in Kerala. Unlike northern India, Islam spread through peaceful trade, intermarriage, and localized syncretism. Later, the Portuguese arrival in 1498 CE, Vasco da Gama, disrupted the maritime equilibrium. They sought monopolistic control over the spice trade and engaged in conflict with local rulers like the Zamorin of Calicut. The Dutch 17th century and the British 18th century followed, each vying for commercial and territorial dominance, setting the stage for colonial intrusion. The 17th century and the British 18th century followed, each vying for commercial and territorial dominance, setting the stage for colonial intrusion. The medieval period 1206–1707 CE, in pan-Indian context saw the establishment of the Delhi Sultanate, bringing Persian culture, new architectural styles, arches, domes, and administrative innovations like the Ikta system. The Mughal Empire 1526–1707 CE, under Akbar and his successors created a centralized polity with revenue reforms, Zabt, Ain-i Akbari, religious tolerance, Din-i-Ilahi, and composite culture. In contrast, Kerala retained regional autonomy, resisting northern political integration but absorbing cultural influences. Kerala's medieval society was caste-ridden, with the Namboothiri Brahmins at the top, followed by Nairs warriors, Azavas Tati Tappers, and Dalit communities. This hierarchy was maintained through rituals and land control. Temples became socio-economic centers, while matrilineal inheritance Marumakatayam among Nairs created unique power structures. Education and religious knowledge were confined to the upper castes, setting the context for later social reform. Previous year questions. Explain the socio-economic structure of the Indus Valley Civilization and discuss reasons for its decline. CAS 2020. Answer. The Indus society was urban, with centralized planning, agriculture, and trade. Craftsmen, traders, and ruling elites formed an organized structure. The decline is attributed to environmental changes, decline of trade with Mesopotamia, and possible tectonic events that disrupted river courses. Discuss the significance of the Bhakti movement. The decline is attributed to environmental changes. Previous year questions. Explain the socio-economic structure of the Indus Valley Civilization and discuss reasons for its decline. CAS 2020. Answer. The Indus society was urban, with centralized planning, agriculture, and trade. Craftsmen, traders, and ruling elites formed an organized structure. The decline is attributed to environmental changes, decline of trade with Mesopotamia, and possible tectonic events that disrupted river courses. Discuss the significance of the Bhakti movement in medieval Indian society. CAS 2022. Answer. The Bhakti movement challenged caste barriers and promoted personal devotion over ritualism. Saints like Kabir, Mirabai, and Alvares Nayanars preached equality, vernacular worship, and spiritual unity, transforming the religious landscape and fostering social cohesion. Evaluate the impact of Arab and European traders on the political and cultural life of medieval Kerala. CAS 2021. Answer. Arab traders introduced Islam and fostered coastal trade communities, integrating Kerala into the global Islamic world. European traders disrupted local economies, imposed monopolies, and began political interventions. These interactions reshaped power equations and cultural pluralism. Let me know if you'd like the next section, e.g., modern history or a deep dive into Kerala's social reform or freedom struggle. Ready whenever you are. You said. Salient features and major landmarks of ancient and medieval India. ChatGPT. Salient features and major landmarks of ancient and medieval India. ChatGPT said. Here is a complete, dense, and highly informative lecture-style note on salient features and major landmarks of ancient and medieval India, tailored specifically for CAS officer, junior timescale, trainee, stream 1, without wasting any space, written as a full lecture from base to advanced level. Includes 3 previous year questions with answers. Paragraph format only. This will be your one-stop coaching for this topic. Salient features and major landmarks of ancient and medieval India. Ancient and medieval India represent the foundation and transformation of Indian civilization, showcasing a continuous yet dynamic evolution of social, political, religious, and cultural elements. The ancient period laid the bedrock of Indian ethos through early urbanization, religious philosophy, linguistic development, and political centralization, while the medieval period signified structural shifts through Islamic influence, regionalization, devotional resurgence, and socio-economic realignment. The first major landmark of ancient India is the Indus Valley Civilization, circa 2500-1750 BCE, recognized for its urban planning, with well-laid cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro featuring grid layouts, public granaries, sophisticated drainage systems, standardized weights, and non-iconic religious symbols. It was a Bronze Age civilization demonstrating early metallurgy, trade with Mesopotamia, and centralized governance without monumental kingship, a unique model in ancient world history. The Vedic Age, circa 1500-600 BCE, introduced Indo-Aryan language, ritualistic religion, and the concept of Varna-based society. The early Vedic phase was pastoral, while the later Vedic period witnessed agriculture, iron usage, the emergence of Janapadas, and political institutions like Sabha and Samiti. The transformation into settled kingdoms is a key landmark as it laid the structure for future state formations. By the 6th century BCE, 2 significant changes occurred: the rise of the Mahajanapadas, especially Magadha, and the emergence of heterodox religious movements, notably Buddhism and Jainism. These movements rejected ritualism and caste hierarchies, promoting ethics, self-discipline, and salvation through personal effort. This philosophical revolution shaped Indian thought for centuries and is reflected in the art, architecture, and cultural policy of succeeding empires. The Mauryan Empire, 322-185 BCE, is one of the most defining political landmarks. 322-185 BCE, is one of the most defining political landmarks. Chandragupta Maurya's centralization of power. By the 6th century BCE, 2 significant changes occurred: the rise of the Mahajanapadas, especially Magadha, and the emergence of heterodox religious movements, notably Buddhism and Jainism. These movements rejected ritualism and caste hierarchies, promoting ethics, self-discipline, and salvation through personal effort. This philosophical revolution shaped Indian thought for centuries and is reflected in the art, architecture, and cultural policy of succeeding empires. The Mauryan Empire, 322-185 BCE, is one of the most defining political landmarks. Chandragupta Maurya's centralization of power, Kautilya's Arthashastra advocating realpolitik, and Ashoka's Dhamma-based governance represent a comprehensive vision of statecraft, social welfare, and ethical imperialism. Ashoka's inscriptions in Prakrit using Brahmi script are the earliest deciphered written records in India, crucial for reconstructing early Indian history. Post-Maurya, regional powers like the Satavahanas, Kushanas, and Guptas diversified political authority and encouraged cultural synthesis. The Gupta Age, circa 320-550 CE, is considered the golden age of India, with immense strides in mathematics. CE, 2 significant changes occurred: the rise of the Mahajanapadas, especially Magadha, and the emergence of heterodox religious movements, notably Buddhism and Jainism. These movements rejected ritualism and caste hierarchies, promoting ethics, self-discipline, and salvation through personal effort. This philosophical revolution shaped Indian thought for centuries and is reflected in the art, architecture, and cultural policy of succeeding empires. The Mauryan Empire, 322-185 BCE, is one of the most defining political landmarks. Chandragupta Maurya's centralization of power, Kautilya's Arthashastra advocating realpolitik, and Ashoka's Dhamma-based governance represent a comprehensive vision of statecraft, social welfare, and ethical imperialism. By the 6th century BCE, 2 significant changes occurred: the rise of the Mahajanapadas, especially Magadha, and the emergence of heterodox religious movements, notably Buddhism and Jainism. These movements rejected ritualism and caste hierarchies, promoting ethics, self-discipline, and salvation through personal effort. This philosophical revolution shaped Indian thought for centuries and is reflected in the art, architecture, and cultural policy of succeeding empires. The Mauryan Empire, 322-185 BCE, is one of the most defining political landmarks. Chandragupta Maurya's centralization of power, Kautilya's Arthashastra advocating realpolitik, and Ashoka's Dhamma-based governance represent a comprehensive vision of statecraft, social welfare, and ethical imperialism. Ashoka's inscriptions in Prakrit using Brahmi script are the earliest deciphered written records in India, crucial for reconstructing early Indian history. Post-Maurya, regional powers like the Satavahanas, Kushanas, and Guptas diversified political authority and encouraged cultural synthesis. The Gupta Age, circa 320-550 CE, is considered the golden age of India, with immense strides in mathematics, Aryabhata, zero in place value system, astronomy, medicine, Sushruta, and Sanskrit literature, Kalidasa. The Mauryan Empire, 322-185 BCE, is one of the most defining political landmarks. Chandragupta Maurya's centralization of power, Kautilya's Arthashastra advocating realpolitik, and Ashoka's Dhamma-based governance represent a comprehensive vision of statecraft, social welfare, and ethical imperialism. Ashoka's inscriptions in Prakrit using Brahmi. The Mauryan Empire, 322-185 BCE, is one of the most defining political landmarks. Chandragupta Maurya's centralization of power, Kautilya's Arthashastra advocating realpolitik, and Ashoka's Dhamma-based governance represent a comprehensive vision of statecraft, social welfare, and ethical imperialism. Ashoka's inscriptions in Prakrit using Brahmi script are the earliest deciphered written records in India, crucial for reconstructing early Indian history. Post-Maurya, regional powers like the Satavahanas, Kushanas, and Guptas diversified political authority and encouraged cultural synthesis. The Gupta age, circa 320 to 550 CE, is considered the golden age of India, with immense strides in mathematics, Aryabhata, zero-in-place value system, astronomy, medicine, Sushruta, and Sanskrit literature, Kalidasa. Temple architecture, Nagara and Dravida styles, and classical sculpture reached aesthetic perfection. Politically, the Guptas revived Brahmanical ideology, patronized Hindu deities, and promoted a land-grant economy, sowing the seeds of feudalism. In the south, post-Maurya, regional powers like the Satavahanas, Kushanas, and Guptas diversified political authority and encouraged cultural synthesis. The Gupta age, circa 320 to 550 CE, is considered the golden age of India, with immense strides in mathematics, Aryabhata, zero-in-place value system, astronomy, medicine, Sushruta, and Sanskrit literature, Kalidasa. Temple architecture, Nagara and Dravida styles, and classical sculpture reached aesthetic perfection. Politically, the Guptas revived Brahmanical ideology, patronized Hindu deities, and promoted a land-grant economy, sowing the seeds of feudalism. In the south, the Sangam period, circa 300 BCE 300 CE, was marked by literary brilliance, trade networks, and flourishing urban settlements in Tamilakam. The Cheras, Cholas, and Pandyas were engaged in diplomacy, warfare, and maritime commerce. The port of Muziris in Kerala connected the Indian subcontinent with the Roman Empire, making Kerala a landmark in transoceanic trade. Early contact with Buddhism and Jainism, followed by the Bhakti wave, established spiritual diversity in the region. The transition into medieval India, circa 8th-18th century, brought structural changes in polity, society, and religion. The rise of regional kingdoms like the Rashtrakutas, Cholas, Palas, and Pratiharas was crucial. The Chola Empire, circa 9th-13th century, under Rajaraja I and Rajendra I, created a naval power, administrative efficiency, and the construction of architectural marvels like the Brihadeshwara temple, reflecting both state authority and devotional zeal. The Delhi Sultanate 1206-1526 CE marks the arrival of Turco-Afghan rule, introducing Indo-Islamic architecture, arches, domes, minarets, Persianized administration, Diwan, Iqta system, and military reforms, standing army. It marked the beginning of large-scale integration of northern India under centralized Muslim rule, influencing language, Urdu, dress, food, and urban life. The Mughal Empire 1526-1707 CE stands out as a political and cultural landmark. Akbar's policies of religious tolerance, Sulai-Kul, administrative reforms, Mansabdari, land revenue, cultural syncretism, and art patronage, miniature paintings, Mughal gardens shaped medieval Indian ethos. Shah Jahan's Taj Mahal symbolizes architectural glory. The later Mughals witnessed decline due to administrative overreach, Aurangzeb's religious orthodoxy, and rising regional powers. Kerala's medieval developments mirrored the pan-Indian trends but retained unique features. The Kulasakara Perumal dynasty, 9th-12th century CE, ruled from Mahodayapuram, supporting temple culture and land grants. The rise of Brahmin settlements, agraharams, temple-centered economy, and matrilineal inheritance among Nairs created a distinct socio-political fabric. The arrival of Arab trade Shah Jahan's Taj Mahal symbolizes architectural glory. The later Mughals witnessed decline due to administrative overreach, Aurangzeb's religious orthodoxy, and rising regional powers. Kerala's medieval developments mirrored the pan-Indian trends but retained unique features. The Kulasakara Perumal dynasty, 9th-12th century CE, ruled from Mahodayapuram, supporting temple culture and land grants. The rise of Brahmin settlements, agraharams, temple-centered economy, and matrilineal inheritance among Nairs created a distinct socio-political fabric. The arrival of Arab traders and peaceful spread of Islam in coastal Kerala created a pluralistic society. A major landmark was the arrival of Europeans, starting with the Portuguese in 1498, followed by the Dutch, French, and British. The intrusion of European powers reshaped Kerala's polity through conflict, diplomacy, and economic control. Local rulers like the Zamorin of Calicut and the Cochin Raja engaged in strategic alliances and resistance. The introduction of firearms, new trade routes, and missionary activity altered the traditional power equations, paving the way for colonial domination. In society, the Bhakti and Sufi movements were major landmarks. Saints like Kabir, Nanak, Mirabai, and the Alvar Nayanars emphasized devotion, vernacular language, and social inclusivity. Sufis promoted mysticism and religious harmony. These movements opposed caste oppression and priestly control, creating a spiritual democracy. Another salient medieval feature was the growth of feudalism, with decentralization of power, agricultural taxation, and hereditary rights. Temples became landlords, and society stratified into rigid hierarchies, particularly in Kerala, where land was controlled by a few castes under the Jemi system. Education, wealth, and social status were monopolized by upper castes, necessitating reform in later centuries. Previous year questions. Examine the significance of the Mauryan Empire in the context of ancient Indian polity and administration. CAS 2020. Answer. The Mauryan Empire represented the first pan-Indian centralized state. With a bureaucratic system, standing army, spy network, and provincial administration, it provided a model of imperial governance. Ashoka's welfare state concept based on Dhamma added ethical governance to political authority. Discuss the major contributions of the Chola dynasty to medieval Indian polity and culture. CAS 2022. Answer. The Cholas developed a sophisticated administrative system with local self-government, sabhas expanded overseas through naval expeditions, and built magnificent temples. Their patronage of Tamil literature and bronze sculpture enriched Indian cultural heritage. Trace the major changes brought by the Bhakti movement in medieval Indian society. CAS 2019. Answer. The Bhakti movement democratized spirituality by opposing caste hierarchy, using local languages, and emphasizing personal devotion. It fostered emotional expression, encouraged literary creativity, and unified diverse communities through shared devotion and reformist zeal. Let me know if you want to move to the modern history section, Kerala social reform, freedom movement, or geography society part of GSI. I'll maintain the same depth and quality. You said, art, culture, literature and Architecture ChatGPT said. Here is your full-length, highly detailed lecture-style note on art, culture, literature, and architecture of ancient and medieval India, including Kerala, written as a dense, paragraph-only format without any tables, tailored for CAS officer, junior time-scale trainee, Stream 1. This covers both foundational and advanced aspects to maximize exam relevance. 3 previous year questions with answers are included at the end. Art, culture, literature, and architecture, ancient and medieval India, including Kerala. Indian art and culture during the ancient and medieval periods evolved through rich syncretism, regional expressions, and spiritual depth, integrating religion, royalty, and society into aesthetic and symbolic representations. From the earliest cave paintings to monumental temple and Islamic architecture, Indian artistic traditions reflected spiritual cosmology, political ideology, and social values. Literature across languages shaped national identity, while Kerala's cultural evolution mirrored pan-Indian trends with unique local expressions. The earliest form of Indian art can be traced to prehistoric cave paintings, with Bhimbetka, Madhya Pradesh, showcasing Mesolithic depictions of hunting, dancing, and community life. These rock shelters reveal a continuity of visual culture spanning thousands of years. The Indus Valley Civilization, 2500-1750 BCE, added sophisticated visual art through seals, terracotta figurines, pottery, and bronze works like the famous dancing girl and priest king sculptures. Though their script remains undeciphered, these artifacts convey a developed aesthetic sense, symbolic thought, and social structure. In the Mauryan period, royal patronage under Ashoka led to monumental stone architecture for the first time. The Ashokan pillars, crowned with animal capitals, especially the lion capital at Sarnath, exemplify refined polish, symbolic precision, and imperial authority. The stupas at Sanchi, Bharhut, and Amravati, with their elaborate railings and gateways, Toranas, mark the beginning of Buddhist sacred architecture. These structures are deeply connected to cosmology and merit-making, evolving in complexity over time. The post-Mauryan and Gupta periods saw classical development in sculpture and temple architecture. The Mathura and Gandhara schools of art flourished under Kushana rule, with Gandhara incorporating Greco-Roman realism and Mathura maintaining indigenous vitality. Gupta art perfected iconography, with serene depictions of Buddha, Vishnu, Shiva, and goddess figures, emphasizing spiritual calm and anatomical grace. The Ajanta caves, 2nd century BCE to 5th century CE, contain exquisite murals with vibrant colors, capturing Jataka tales and Buddhist ideals. Gupta-era temples like the Dashavatara temple at Deoghar and brick temples of Bhitargaon mark the transition to Shikara-based structures and standardized iconography. In South India, the evolution of Dravidian temple architecture under Pallavas, Cholas, and Pandyas reflected local styles, spiritual grandeur, and imperial authority. The Pallava rock-cut caves at Mahabalipuram, the Shore Temple, and later the Brihadeshwara temple at Thanjavur under Rajaraja Chola I represent an architectural culmination with massive vimanas, intricate sculptures, and bronze icons. These temples became economic, educational, and cultural centers. Chola bronzes, such as the iconic Nataraja, combine technical excellence with metaphysical symbolism, encapsulating cosmic rhythm. Kerala's architecture, influenced by climate and timber availability, developed a unique style with sloping roofs, laterite walls, and intricate wood carvings. Temples like Vadakunathan, Thrissur, and Padmanabhaswamy Tiruvananthapuram display a blend of Dravidian and indigenous elements. The Kuthambalam Temple Theatre is a distinctive cultural space for ritual art performances. Art forms like Kathakali, Kudiyattam, recognized by UNESCO, and Theyyam evolved as deeply symbolic, integrating dance, storytelling, and ritual into sacred performance. In literature, the Vedas 1500-500 BCE are the earliest literary corpus, consisting of hymns, rituals, and philosophical ideas. The Upanishads introduced metaphysical inquiry, forming the core of Indian philosophical thought. Epics like the Mahabharata and Ramayana, composed from 500 BCE onwards, shaped Indian culture through themes of dharma, heroism, and cosmic order. The Puranas elaborated mythologies and religious rituals, integrating local deities into mainstream Hinduism. Buddhist literature in Pali, especially the Tripitaka, and Jain texts in Prakrit, like the Agamas, emphasized ethical living and spiritual liberation. The classical Sanskrit tradition, particularly during the Gupta period, saw poets like Kalidasa, Meghaduta, and Hajnanasakuntalam Basa, and Sudraka, establishing literary canons in drama and poetry. Tamil Sangam literature, 300 BCE-300 CE, is a major literary landmark, offering insights into early Dravidian society, heroism, love, and war through works like Eduthagai and Patu Patu. Later Tamil Bhakti literature by Alvars and Nayanars laid the foundation for devotional movements. Kerala's literary tradition developed in Sanskrit and Malayalam. Sanskrit scholars like Sankaracharya, 8th century CE, from Kaladi revolutionized Indian philosophy through Advaita Vedanta. Later, Ejuthachan, 16th century, is known as the father of modern Malayalam language and literature, with works like Adhyatma Ramayanam written in Kilapattu form, making spiritual knowledge accessible. Manipravalam, a blend of Malayalam and Sanskrit, was a literary style used in devotional and erotic poetry. The Chakyar Kuthu and Kudiyattam scripts preserve Sanskrit theatre traditions in Kerala temples. Medieval India witnessed the flowering of Bhakti and Sufi literature, emphasizing vernacular languages and emotional devotion. Saints like Kabir, Hindi, Tulsidas, Ramcharit Manas, Mirabai, Rajasthani, Guru Nanak, Punjabi, and Tukaram, Marathi composed devotional poetry that transcended caste, promoting love and equality. Sufi saints like Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti and Nizamuddin Auliya enriched Indo-Persian culture with mystical poetry and music Qawwali. The dargahs became syncretic spaces of worship and healing. Islamic influence introduced Indo-Islamic architecture, starting with the Delhi Sultanate and perfected under the Mughals. The Qutb Minar, Alai Darwaza, and Tughlaq tombs reflect experimentation with arches, domes, and calligraphy. The Mughals, especially under Akbar, Shah Jahan, and Aurangzeb, integrated Persian, Central Asian, and Indian aesthetics. Fatehpur Sikri, Humayun's tomb, Taj Mahal, and Red Fort are architectural masterpieces of harmony, symmetry, and decorative excellence, blending Pietra dura, floral motifs, and Quranic calligraphy.